Welcome to this special video edition of the Juicecast.
Today we'll be talking with Gabriel Haines. Gabriel is a crypto content creator making shirtless videos in which he waves a machete around while yelling at the camera. After a recent crowdfund on Juicebox, Gabriel went to the Bahamas to investigate SPF in the wake of the collapse of FTX.
In this casual conversation, he tells us about the Hummus to crypto pipeline and his journey as a content creator from making DeFi tutorials to his more recent yelling videos. He also tells us about the early days of DeFi, his reflections on what has changed, and what it's like hanging around in crypto Twitter during the bear of 2022.
We hope you enjoy this week's episode. All right, welcome to the Juicecast. Gabriel, how's it going?
GM, everyone, GM.
All right, so first thing that we want to talk about is the Hummus to crypto pipeline. So how did you go from Hummus reviews to getting involved in crypto? This is what we would like to know.
I like how you say hummus to crypto pipeline. Makes it sound like a military industrial complex or something. So I don't know. Yeah, we filled the pipes with hummus and then crypto came out on the other end. No. So I got very inspired to create content, really by Gary V, if you're familiar. And at first, I was very bad. Just like all things, you start off not very good. And a lot of the content I was making was just kind of content about content. Oh, it's super important to make videos, like videos about that, which is dumb in a way. So from there, I went to a hummus place and I was like, man, I should really record this because I have a great passion for hummus. It is a delicious meal and definitely underrated. It does not have the following like pizza has. Everyone did pizza review, burger review, but there's no hummus review. And in Israel, hummus is where I was living, hummus was a very big thing. In the Middle East in general, it's kind of like the fast food of choice, right? You can go in, there's tens of different hummus places in Tel Aviv for sure, which was where I was living. And just going around and talking about them, eating, reviewing them, etc. seemed like a pretty good idea to me and fun because I got to eat a bunch of hummus. So I did that for a while. It kind of culminated in the chickpea challenge. And everyone listening should Google the chickpea challenge, which was basically a hummus eating contest. I got a couple friends and my wife was the hostess. And we just ate a whole lot of hummus. And it was pretty awesome. But around that time, COVID came just as I was doing these hummus reviews. And all the restaurants shut down. So I couldn't really go out and like continue doing reviews. I mean, I could like order them in, but I didn't feel like it was really the right thing.
So this was the real tragedy of the COVID pandemic, was the effect on the hummus review sector.
It put us out of business. I'm not going to lie. It hurt. But we made it through. Because I just want to say briefly, because the hummus, it's not just a judgment on the flavor, the taste. There's a lot of things that go along with the hummus, including the accompaniments. Is a pickle good? Does it come with olives? Does it come with spicy? How's the pita bread? What is the ambiance of the location where you're eating? Do they offer you free refills? Very common. Do they offer you a coffee at the end of the meal? Very common. So if they're doing all those things, that's what makes a good hummus place, not just the flavor, not just the texture, etc. So I could go on for hummus about a while, but we could transition slowly into crypto now because this is the time when COVID hit and I was at home and I was just online. We were all online and the market crashed. The general market crashed. And they started talking about how they're going to print a whole lot of currency in order to save the market. And when I heard that, it reminded me of a time when I was on the Silk Road buying drugs with Bitcoin. And I said, well, maybe I should smoke some drugs. No, just kidding. I was like, maybe I should research more about Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is this type of thing, what's supposed to be a hedge against inflation. So I started looking into Bitcoin a lot, spending a lot of time trying to understand it. That's where I started getting into crypto. The content in the crypto started really when I got more into Ethereum, because I soon discovered that Bitcoin was not that exciting. There wasn't a lot of things you could do, but Ethereum had all of these applications. It had all of these different toys you can play around with. So I started using these apps, and very early on, even I was definitely not an expert at the time, but very early on I started making videos because, first of all, I was already in the groove of making videos, but also it's a very good way to learn, because if you're trying to explain something to someone, you have to have a very good understanding of it. And also, if you make a mistake, people will say you're wrong, and that also improves your knowledge of the topic. So yeah, that's really how I got into crypto content, doing tutorials, explanations, interviews with people in the space, and with popular apps.
Yeah, Matthew and I kind of relate to that, in that we got into crypto by making content about DAOs. And in order to do that, like, we were doing podcasts and we were doing articles, and it actually became really difficult to be able to just explain like what something is in a way that like anyone can understand it, and making sure that it actually makes sense and is factual and all of that. So fast forward to Poor Dart started a poll on Twitter asking if crypto Twitter should send you to the Bahamas to make videos. And within a couple hours, there was like the project on Juicebox, and by the end of the day, the fundraising goal was met, which is pretty wild. I'm wondering if you can tell us about your time in the Bahamas, how it was, and like, did you come home with SBF handcuffed in a burlap sack, or like, what were your findings?
Yeah, I actually got his head right over here. Let me get it for you. No. But yeah, it was pretty awesome. Shout out to Poor Dart for putting that out there. Shout out to Cup of Joseph, who actually created the page on Juicebox. I had never used Juicebox before. I always wanted to use it, but I didn't really have any particular reason for it. But the whole experience of doing the fundraising was really cool, because it wasn't even me who created the page. It was a Cup of Joseph. They created the page. They transferred me the ownership completely, trustlessly, decentralized. They put up an NFT there. If you contributed 0.1 ETH, you got an NFT. And it was awesome. It was like, this is so super cool. And yeah, so that filled up extremely quickly. When we got to about $5,000, I told my wife, like, listen, this is going to fill. Like, we got to book tickets and we got to go. So we booked the tickets, I think even 36 hours before the flight. Like, we booked the tickets. Literally the next day, we drove into Manhattan, because we live in this remote area. You can't fly out of here. Just a few hours before, like, we didn't even know this was happening. And we just got out the door. And yeah, so once we got to the Bahamas, and here's the thing, like, one thing that actually really stood out to me during this whole time, people started calling me a grifter, a scammer, trying to raise funds for a family vacation. And that actually really hurt my feelings, because I didn't wake up and I'm like, oh, let me go to the Bahamas today. Let me see if I can get crypto Twitter to pay for it.
Right.
That's not actually what happened. So when I got there, I felt like this was not a vacation, right? I had to deliver something. I had to do something that people will feel like they actually contributed to something meaningful and they got their money's worth, right? I wasn't just going to go take the money and then peace. That would be horrible, right? That's a terrible thing to do. So every day when I was there, I really made sure to go out and capture something. If I couldn't get into his residences in the Albany, I would go around looking at like other locations around there, just taking video, showing people what's going on there. So you can kind of get a sense even of just the general feeling in the area. And I learned some things about, first of all, the Bahamas. I'd never been there. It's a very tourist-driven place. 50% of all of their money comes from tourism. So we get to the hotel. It's like a hotel resort. It's a casino. I don't know. That gives you a certain vibe. It's kind of like Vegas on the beach in a way. But if you drive outside, you drive 10 minutes, you're in very, very poor conditions. And in fact, like even SBF's apartment complex, which is called the Albany, is located next to empty lot of land, but also next to a completely abandoned hotel or apartment complex of its own. So it's really weird to see these $40 and $50 million houses, apartments, literally those are the prices, right next door to a dilapidated, like abandoned area. It's just very odd.
And it's really funny to think about the idea of people suggesting that you're like a grifter or that you're gonna like rug the money when the whole idea is to go to the Bahamas to like document and investigate this SBF case. Like, it's very funny to see those two together. Did you run into any challenges like with security while you were filming in the Bahamas?
We definitely had some challenges. So getting into the Albany was the crown jewel, obviously. Like, everyone wanted that video of me yelling in front of his house. I mean, let's be honest, that's what the 10K was for. And I knew it, and I wanted to make sure that I could actually deliver something. So I had to figure out how to actually get in there. And like I said, every single person that lives there is $100 million net worth or greater. This is the 1% of the 1%. These are extremely wealthy people that live in this area. And obviously, they're not just going to let any random person walk in. They did let in BitBoy, which I don't know how. I don't know how BitBoy got in, but I wanted to. So I tried a couple different methods. The first method was Albany's on a beach. So you could technically walk in from the beach. There's no gate, there's no guard. And I did do this, and I was able to walk in from the beach. But after maybe 5 minutes of walking, once I was already in the compound, a security guard comes up and says, "What are you doing here? Like, you need to leave." So, I think they have cameras, or one of the employees saw me walk in, whatever it is. And I think that also the security has definitely ramped up since people like me started showing up in front of their building yelling about shit. Like, I know BitBoy was thrown out of there, as was I. The way that we did eventually get in was by buying tickets to a golf tournament. They have a golf course on the property, and the golf course was designed by Tiger Woods. So again, this is very, very fancy schmancy type stuff. So we buy tickets to the golf tournament. It was $75 for a ticket. We just showed the ticket at the door and they let us right in. But what's weird was that they were like, "Oh, you park in parking lot C, and you can either take the shuttle to the golf course or you can just walk. So we can just do whatever we want in there." Perfect. This is what we came here for.
Exactly.
So instead of driving to parking lot C, we just drove up right next to SBF's house. And I knew that as soon as I started yelling shirtless, I wasn't going to last long on the property. So we did a couple things, like beforehand, we got a coffee, we just looked around a little bit. There was a video of SBF running down the street, so I did a similar one. There was a picture of him at the grocery store, so I did a similar stuff like that. And my wife was having a great time. She was like, "I want to move in. This is great." And there's like shops there. She was like, "Let's go shopping."
Right.
But at some point I'm like, no, we're not here for all this. We're here to take the video. So we went to, by his apartment, and on one side of his apartment, there was a bunch of security. So we kind of went around the back and started filming. The security was there. Maybe less than 30 seconds. The guy was already there. So the security guard pulls up and I'm shirtless, yelling.
Of course.
I'm still yelling as he's pulling up, of course.
Of course.
So then Lee, my wife, starts talking to him. She's like, oh, my husband, he's just makes funny videos. And he asks us his name, like my name. Then he said like he recognized me from TikTok, which I'm not sure if he actually recognized me or he was just trying to kind of fish, like, you know, like, who is this guy? Like, maybe I'll get him to say he's an influencer or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
The security guard was not a dummy. Like, he wasn't an idiot. After that first interaction where we had just filled, he's like, okay, fine. I guess he's like, you guys can go. So we're like, okay, seems like we can just leave. So we get in the car, we drive away, start driving away. But as we're driving away, I see him driving behind us, the security guard. He's driving behind us. He's on his walkie-talkie. He starts taking pictures of our license plate. So I'm thinking, not great. Then he pulls us over and he says, hey, you got to follow me, right? Like, you got to follow me now. So he goes in front of us. He drives us towards the exit and he parks his golf cart in front of the exit. So, you know, we're boxed in now. Like, we can't leave. And he's like, okay, you need to talk to my manager. And oh, by the way, is this you? And he pulls up a video of me saying something on his phone. I'm like, yeah, that's me. So I'm like, okay, what's going on now? So we get out of the car. Our car's like boxed in. And he's like, we got to talk to the manager. So the manager comes out. I guess he was the head of the security for the entire place. His name was Nelson. He was very nice. He was a very nice guy.
Yeah.
He was pretty chill. He was just like, oh, you guys were here for the golf tournament? I'm like, yeah, I have the tickets here. He's like, you know, if people let you in when they're not supposed to let you in, then they're going to lose their job. So you don't want people to lose their job, right? You don't want people to, you know, get hurt from what you're doing. I'm like, well, no, I don't. But, you know, also I'm thinking like they didn't do their job very well. They let this shirtless man
Also
get
true.
right up to these $1 million houses. Like,
Right.
maybe you should get fired. I don't know.
Yeah.
But after giving us that speech, mostly about saving his own ass, he's just like, okay, you can go. I'm like, okay, great. And I will never go back there.
Yeah, it's funny. There's this one time that Brileigh and I were both photographers and we went to go photograph this really iconic building. It's like a, you know, expensive place to live, whatever. And within fucking 15 seconds, this guy comes up, meet me in this little golf cart, because they always have golf carts, these guys. The security guys, they're always in these little, like, puny little carts. And they come up and they say, whoa, what are you doing there? And, you know, it's just, oh, you know, you're trespassing. Da, da, da. And there's just something about these guys where it's something between their job and the golf cart. It comes together to form this little monster of a person where they're just like so incentivized to demonstrate their power, you know, and they're like, you know, I really can't be here. Anyway, yeah, we've also had similar golf cart stories. Maybe not quite like a $50 million place, but still like luxury real estate. These guys get real cagey. There's just something about it.
To be fair, I should not have been there yelling. So I don't blame him at all. I knew it was going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, too, because I've known about your videos for quite a while. I followed you. And one thing that I found interesting about the Bahamas videos was that we did see Lee appear a few times. Mm-hmm. And this is like I feel like a sort of new-ish development. Like I haven't really seen her as much. So I'm curious if you could tell us a little bit about the Haines family content apparatus. Like, is Lee going to become a central character, or is this just like an extension of her kind of interest in like acting? And, you know, she's made content as well with you in the past with like the Hummus reviews. And I'm just curious like how she's going to fit into the Gabrielle universe.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned already, she was making content even before I met her. She's a musician. She has songs out. She's been acting in commercials, all this kind of stuff. So she's very comfortable on camera. She jumps in wherever she wants. She did film the video of me in front of the SBF building. She filmed some of my videos whenever I ask. And even if I don't ask, sometimes she's behind the scenes, just capturing what's going on or reacting to whatever I was saying or doing. And I think it's awesome. I think basically it's not really planned. Like all the stuff I do is not scripted in any way. It's just very spur of the moment. And we're just kind of going with the flow. I think she definitely adds a different element, a different perspective. So if people want even more shirtless Machete videos, then you can follow Mother of Degens for her own take on it and her own style. And I think it just adds to the whole experience.
Okay, so you're in the Bahamas, you make the videos, you're waving a cucumber around, Sammy, my boy, you know, okay, so we love the shtick, and obviously crypto Twitter like connects with it, but there's also like a more serious thing happening in the background, which is where Alameda stole like FTX user funds, and, you know, a huge number of retail investors lost money, and this whole thing blew up. And it feels like in a lot of ways, like we've kind of lost our way from DeFi to CeFi. Like we've seen Celsius and FTX and like funds like 3 Arrows Capital that have all gone down. Like it's been a rough few months, you know, and you've been around DeFi for a comparatively long time and making content about dApps and how to use them, like I want to say going back to around 2020, give or take. So I'm wondering if you could bring us back to the early days of your involvement in DeFi. Like how are things different from now? Like what was that time like?
The first video that I made about crypto, the first tutorial or whatever, was about Yearn. At the time, Yearn Finance was very, very hot, and it was the talk of the town. These were the days where humble yield farmers could extract a humble day's work. Like this was very early on in like yield farming. So Compound had just launched their token and was distributing it through emissions on their platform, and people started just figuring out how to like fold these things. So you would put in $1,000 of USDC, but then you could borrow another 700, and then you could put that in, and then all of a sudden you're farming with $10,000. And so, and that stuff is still going on till today, obviously. But this is certainly when a lot of people started learning about it. Certainly when I started learning about it, there was a lot of excitement. There was a lot of new projects popping up every day. Many of them were scams. Hot dog finance, for example. There were many food related farms, tokens, whatever it is.
Right.
And the hype was just growing because at this time, like crypto exploded in 2021. Like in 2020, it was much smaller. It wasn't mainstream almost at all. It just got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until we get to FTX, which FTX, the situation has become so big that mainstream podcasts, stuff that I listen to, not only are covering it, but are dedicating full episodes to it. So it has become so big and such in the public eye that has definitely changed, you know, just in terms of the numbers, the people paying attention, stuff like that.
Over those number of years, you've also been building up your own following through these tutorials, and it's kind of gone from that now to like the shirtless Machete persona that's become really iconic on crypto Twitter. Can you tell us what it was like going through this process, like building up this following over the last couple years and going through the content grind?
Yeah, I mean, I think that content is so important. Back to those early days of making videos about videos. Go make videos, people. It is an extremely big opportunity for anyone. It doesn't have a very high cost of entry, but if you're consistent about it and you like what you do, then you can really access a whole nother world, like a whole nother bunch of opportunities, which you would have not been able to access if you had not created that content. So I think that it is really, like I said, it's a massive opportunity for anyone. If they're in crypto, if they're a beekeeper, if they really like shoelaces. It doesn't matter. Like literally yesterday, Joe Rogan had a beekeeper on, and it is fascinating because it is great to hear people who are passionate about a topic talk about it. That is a blessing. And trying to be part of that and having fun with my videos, having fun doing whatever it is I'm doing, it translates. And I think that authenticity is what is going to get you there. So I think everyone should do it. You don't need a lot of talent either. It's just consistency and passion. It's a grind though. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you tell us like the origin story of the Machete Man persona? Like how did this start happening? Like whipping out a sword or...
Yeah, the machete itself. I moved up to this house and there was a machete in the garage. So boom, Machete Man.
Wow. So this is just something that happened naturally. Like you were just one day in your backyard shirtless and then you thought, hey, why don't I yell about crypto? Like how does this kind of emerge from the previous stuff that was like more tutorial oriented?
Yeah, it's definitely a process. So like the character, this shirtless Machete Man, is definitely evolved. You could see the beginnings of this type of character even going back a year. When my daughter was born, I had to change my approach to content. She's now a little over a year. Because before that, I was doing tutorials and interviews, but it's very difficult to take an hour out of your day and schedule a time with someone else when you have a 1-month-old. It's just not going to happen. So I had to do something that required a lot less time, which turned to be like very short form videos, right? You can just record for a minute on your phone. There's no editing. Maybe you put like a couple words as a description, but that's it. There's no thumbnail. There's no timestamps. And how long does it take to upload? 30 seconds versus could be an hour for a long video. It's just much, much quicker. And also at the time, I was not sleeping a lot. When you have a newborn, you don't sleep much. And you become very frustrated and you're in a different zone. And this became a way to express myself. Like I'm upset that I can't sleep or whatever, so I can yell about these things on Twitter. It's kind of like a therapy session even, because people don't necessarily have the opportunity to get loud about those things. So this is kind of an outlet for it. And also it is very reflective of crypto Twitter itself. And it's a character that was born on crypto Twitter. Crypto Twitter is maniacal. It's crazy. One day we're going to the moon. You got a Lambo. You got a fleet of Teslas. And then the next day you're liquidated and you live in a cardboard box. And this cycle happens in a bull market. This happens like every day. Now it's died down because there's a lot less attention, but people go crazy over this stuff. And the hype of the number going up or down gets echoed just by so many people talking about it. And it becomes so crazy. And like the same thing with this character. It's like, it's a crazy person. Like it's nuts. It's wild. It's crazy. It's like also the character speaks in CT, like in the language of CT, which is very important. That's a big reason why people resonate with it in the CT community, right?
Okay, so you have this long history of making content on YouTube and probably other Web2 platforms too. And then more recently, like you've also been making NFTs, right? And you've been selling NFTs. So I wonder if you could tell us a bit about that transition and how that has changed things for you. Like, have you found more success with the NFTs versus these kind of Web2 models of YouTube where you need to get X amount of views to make, a certain amount of money, but usually it's not that much money. I'm assuming that the NFTs have done a lot better, but I'm curious if you could tell us about that.
NFTs have done 1,000 times better, to say the least. Let me give you an example. Twitter has a subscribe feature. It's not very popular. I don't even know why it exists. Doesn't seem to be working.
I've never used it.
Some people, some of my fans, they will pay $3 a month. I have like 27 subscribers, something like that. And I post, some behind the scenes videos. Listen, if you want to support me and you think my content's good and it's worth $3 a month, okay, go for it. I appreciate that. But what does that actually mean for me? So the other day, I went into the settings of the Twitter app. Like, oh, I have, some money is here. So how much money did I make? $50. Okay, $50. All right. How do I get this money? Well, first of all, you need to wait 90 days before they will pay out your $50. I swear to God. I was like, what the?
Wow. Holy shit.
So that just right there is just, it doesn't make any sense, right? So let's go with the NFT. So the NFT, what do I choose to make NFTs? Well, I really don't choose. If someone asks for a video to be minted, then I'm more than happy to mint it for them, because then I know there's some demand for it. I don't just mint every video. I mint the ones that people request. So right before the trip to the Bahamas was the last sale I did. There were 10 editions and each was 0.5 or something like that. And, we sold those 10 editions less than an hour. And how much is that? $500? $600? So I made one video, $600. That's really incredible for a 1-minute video. You'll never see that on YouTube, like to get monetized that fast. Paid out immediately. That's incredible. And having that support directly from your audience is amazing. I mean, and then, the Juicebox is even a better example of that, because they weren't even collecting the NFT. Like, they were just like, you've provided enough value that we're going to trust you with this $10,000 to go out and, do it at whatever it is you do. They didn't say you need to give us receipts. They didn't say you need to give us 5 videos a day. They didn't say anything. They were just like, we trust you enough with this money to go and do out whatever you do. And that feeling is incredible. And I've never experienced that in my entire life. And I hope to keep on building on that.
It's funny when we think about all the content that you make with the short videos on Twitter. Like, how do you explain what your life is to people when you meet people outside of crypto? Like, do you have dinner with other couples and be like, yeah, I'm like the Machete guy? Or when you talk to your parents?
Well, if someone asks me what I do, I just say I make videos. I make content. Very simple. Don't have to get into specifics. But actually, well, my dad did call me and ask me where I got the machete from. So since all of this stuff is public, they already know what's going on. And the funniest example, my aunt, she was like, oh, I was in your neighborhood. But then I looked on your Twitter and I saw that you were body surfing at the Margaritaville. So I figured you weren't home. So yeah, I'm pretty low key about it. It is what it is. It's out there.
I wonder, how do you feel being on crypto Twitter these days? We've been kind of hanging around for a couple years now, but it's kind of a bit of a ghost town a little bit. It's like real quiet to some extent right now. I mean, like, shit's going down, with FTX and these other things that are blowing up. But for the most part, it's like quite quiet and a lot of tourists have left. I wonder, how do you feel being one of the louder voices left standing and still here when things aren't, frothy and exciting and, people aren't making a ton of money? Like, what is it like hanging out in crypto Twitter these days, 2022, the end of the year?
For me, it's great. I didn't lose any money in FTX other than market collapsing. I didn't lose any money in Luna other than the market collapsing. I didn't invest with Three Arrow Capital. So other than, the regular 70% drawdown, it's all good. But actually, in the past month, I've had the most amount of success on crypto Twitter than I've ever had before. This trip to the Bahamas, for me, represents a local top. So I guess we're in for a downtrend. But regardless, I think it's awesome. And what I try to do on crypto Twitter is I'm just trying to have fun. Just trying to have a good time. A lot of people, they take this stuff way too seriously. Nothing is going to be solved from a debate on crypto Twitter. All right? It's just not. So let's not do that. Let's have a good time. People want entertainment. People want to have fun. That's what we do. Yeah, I mean,
I feel like to some extent people are a bit fatigued of like the threador, you know, just like people who are like incessantly writing like really serious fucking threads where they're like, if you want to get ahead in this, you know, in this market, you need to do these 10 things. And like the same, it's a little bit like the YouTube content, you know. We were talking about BitBoy earlier. I mean, BitBoy is amazing because it's like you went into DALL-E and you said like, show me a YouTuber, and it was like BitBoy is then summoned. He looks like a fucking render, you know. He's just like, if you turned YouTuber into like a 3D model and then you added like hair and skin and stuff, like you'd get BitBoy. Like he's just this, I don't know what to call him. So that's kind of like how I see your content. I see it as a bit of an antidote to the like super serious, like, yeah, you know, get ahead in this bear market by learning these 7 skills. And then I see like, you know, Gabriel is just like waving a fucking sword around. I'm like, yeah, I like that guy. I like the second guy. I don't like the first thing. I like this guy.
Yeah, people just take it way too seriously. And BitBoy, call a spade a spade. This guy's a scammer. I mean, he dumps on his audience. He shills tokens. Then he dumps on his audience. Then he goes to the Bahamas to catch the scammer. No, this is bullshit, man. This is fucking bullshit. No. And I had a nice feud, but with BitBoy a couple weeks back, where he actually started replying to my videos for some reason. So I got to take shots at him. But yeah, I think that if you want to be super serious and you're like, oh, invest in these tokens, go back to every single one of people's calls from last year. Like, it's all bad. Like, and why would you want to be the person that has to take responsibility for other people's money? Like, to say like, oh, I made you this money, but if you lost them the money, then too bad for you. Like, I don't want to be in that position. And I'd rather just be in a position of, if you want to have fun, if you want to laugh or smile or whatever, then, you know, let's do that. Like, let's have a good time. Like,
yeah, I hear you. All right. Well, I think we've covered everything here, from machetes to SBF in the Bahamas to just having a good time in the bear market, trying to avoid those bear market blues, you know? So
bear market blues.
Yeah. So I just wanted to say thanks so much, Gabriel, for taking the time to sit down with us. It's been really great getting to know you better.
No problem. Happy to do it. Thanks for having me on.
All right. Well, thanks again, Gabriel. And yeah, we'll be following closely, looking forward to more investigations in the future. I think it'd be great. Anytime there's a scammer anywhere, we're going to sick you on him, you know, like a German Shepherd. We're just going to like send Gabriel after you're on the case. So
I serve at the leisure of CT. Send me, gentlemen.
All right. Well, thanks again, Gabriel.
No problem. Appreciate it.